what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the B3 podcast. I'm your host, Brett. I got Chris, the artist formerly known as Heavy C. Got multiple injuries, Matt.
Yep.
No Tanner.
Yep.
Womp, womp.
Womp. Yay.
We have our show partners, Elite Nutrition. Check them out at elitenutritionomaha.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off. Go to the store in Omaha or Lincoln. Yell B3.
Get a free shaker.
There hasn't been any Cybertruck rides yet, so I think people need to ask more about
Yes,
those.
definitely.
It's the least they could do for their loyal customers.
Yep.
I think there should just be a sign offering the rides.
There should be.
If you spend enough, you should be able to drive it.
Yeah. I think if you spend like $500, you should get to drive it yourself.
Yeah.
You have Rosewood
Get a
Block.
punch card, like spend
Yeah.
$500 so many times in a row.
At the end of it, it's got like a happy face and a
Yeah.
Cybertruck. Hey, you bought 12 purchases over $100. You get to test drive the Cybertruck.
We have Rosewood Block. They make the best cutting boards and barbecue. Check them out at rosewoodblock.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off. Also, I assume that they're probably getting to their Christmas order, so if you would like to get something from them, I would do it sooner than later. Because
True.
if you want it by Christmas,
Very true.
they're
Very
busy
true.
peeps.
The Cybertruck, the electric cars, they don't have transmissions, right? It's just the electric motor, so it just spools up,
Yeah.
right?
And I think they can have like multiple motors. Can't they have one per wheel?
Probably.
I think like
nothing
that
about
Hummer
those cars.
EV has like one per wheel.
I think that's right, because they can articulate as well.
Crab walk
differently.
until
Yeah.
that goes out and you're stuck in a fucking city just going back and forth like this, like Austin Powers.
Just stuck like sideways cruising down the road.
Yeah.
All I think about when I see shit like that is, it's just more something. Something else is going to break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's going to break. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, that's all that's next step.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being stuck in fucking crab walk mode though?
Well, I mean, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. You'd have to have it towed.
Could you drive? You just be cockeyed?
Yeah, I think you'd just be cockeyed. So rather than going like straight, you'd just be canted.
Dog walking it down the street.
You know, one of the best things I saw?
I mean, there's a bunch of old trucks out in Ponca that are like that.
Yeah.
I've seen some of those where the back end is like at a different angle than the rest
Yeah,
of the truck.
they're just off just a little bit.
Do you remember that car? I don't remember who made it, but the commercial was like a bunch of Boston dudes talking. But you could pull up by the parking spot and get out, and then you could basically drive the car into the parking spot.
Like you had a little remote control, or like
I don't know how it did it, but it would like pull into the parking spot for you, kind of a thing. I can't remember who made it, but that's kind of sweet though, because you could get in some fucking tight spots that way.
I've seen some.
Of
Maybe
course, you're gonna get fucking door dinged though.
Yeah,
I think it was Dubai that had it, but they have their parking garages in order to maximize space. It's essentially like two little lifts, two little super flat, low profile lifts that like you park your car and they come and they pull up underneath the wheels and they raise it up a couple inches, and then these little robots drive it and they park it out in these garages. So these garages are like all Tetris together. And then when you want your car, the robots know where your car is and they go and they move the cars, grab yours, bring it back up to the front. So they can like maximize efficiency.
So a parking garage kind of like those vending machines that goes up and moves over, grabs your soda, then comes down and drops it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like the Amazon warehouses, right? So like everything in the Amazon warehouse is just fucking all over the place. And so there's no rhyme or reason to it from a human standpoint other than, oh, I have a compartment this big. What do I need to store that's this big? Oh, cool. I'm going to put this toilet paper over here by deodorant or by the fucking chopsticks. And it's just like, well, we have a spot for it, but the robots know where everything is. So like if you look at the shelves in an Amazon warehouse, they don't make any sense at all. But it's just, what can I fit here that these little robots can go and they can grab?
Speaking of automation, how long before them fucking dock workers are automated?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
That guy was such a fucking
that's a
asshole.
very nice segue, Matt, into talking about robots offloading.
Dude, that guy was such an
container ships.
asshole.
Yeah, I think it's very poor timing for them right after the hurricane. The Americans are hurting. Everybody's hurting for $1 right now. You know, things are, and then they're like, we're going to cripple you guys. And the rest of the country's like, well, fuck you. We're already hurting. Now you're talking about that. And we don't care about you guys and give you more money.
Dude, they want a 70% pay increase.
I don't know a whole lot about it, but I thought I saw something that said we're going to get a 50% pay increase. But I think their biggest thing is they don't want their jobs to be automated.
Well, coming out and saying we want to, what I would have done if you don't want to get automated has been like, hey, how about like a 10% to match inflation or whatever, and then automation gets delayed by 8 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Because dude, it doesn't take much to make a robot unload a fucking truck or unload a boat. I mean, that's what happened to every plant. Look at Kellogg's here in Omaha. That plant used to have probably 1,000 or better employees, 2,000 employees, and 90% of it got automated.
They had that big strike a couple years ago too.
Well, yeah, they were down to how many ever employees there. Then they had the strike, and then The union, I don't think, put in any kind of stipulation as far as closing the plant. And then Kellogg's is like, well, fuck you guys. We're just going to close the plant.
And they did.
Yeah.
They gave them the money. They gave them the money they wanted so they come back to work. And then they closed the plant.
Yeah, was it 2026? I think it's going to be done.
Yeah, and I think that was 2 years ago. I think the strike was going on.
Yeah. And some of the guys come in here to the gym and they were just like, man, what the fuck? And I'm like, I just crossed the picket line. Fuck them people. Go to work. But yeah, you're at the dock worker thing. Like, everybody, I get it. Things are expensive, but by constantly raising the price of things doesn't make things less expensive.
Well, and then they were saying those guys make like $150,000 a year or more.
How about the guy that was running his mouth? He makes like $900,000 a year.
Yeah.
Is that the union president?
Yeah, they were showing his mansion in Jersey, and he has this gigantic yacht.
Well, it's like these fucking Teamsters. Those guys, when they tell all these people at Kellogg's to go on strike, I don't know if they're Teamsters or not. Whoever
I don't know.
But the union guys are still getting paid. The union heads and all that other shit are still getting paid. I think the ideas of when unions were like actually like doing things for people, like, hey, you can't make them do all these things when, you know, whatever. Like, I think unions had a very good place at a time.
I think unions are fine as long as if someone has a legitimate grievance and they lose their job over something stupid and the union is strong enough to help you get your job back, I think that's okay. But as far as gouging prices and wanting unrealistic things for, you know, your workforce, it's probably not very beneficial to everyone.
Well, and some of those unions are like unskilled positions.
I mean, you probably got to be some good hand-eye coordination to run those machines that offload those container ships.
I don't doubt that, but do you think we could teach the next person that comes in that pretty quick?
It's probably.
I'm saying their efficiency levels.
They probably wouldn't be as efficient, but it probably wouldn't take much to teach somebody how to
Yeah, I'm sure those guys that have been there forever, their efficiency is probably pretty quick, what they can do. But this isn't like you're bringing a neurosurgeon in.
I mean, that's what Tom Cruise did in the War of the Worlds.
Unloaded ships.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise has done everything, though.
Yeah.
He flew planes. I mean, he did all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But they got him on the... So what? But the thing got delayed until January?
What did?
The strike?
Oh, did it? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think they had something...
Well, he talked about that before, how the president could hit him with
cooling off period
a
thing.
90-day... Make him come back to work for 90 days.
And he goes, we'll just do half as much work.
Yeah.
I was like, cool.
Don't they have that with like the air traffic control, right? Like they can be essentially prevented from taking strike.
I think so.
From going on strike.
But I'm confused because
crucial.
They were talking about that guy when he was being an asshole was talking about the, you know, oh, well, you're not going to get the stuff from China, but the West Coast ports are open because they just renegotiated their contract like 2 years ago. Wouldn't China come to the West Coast? I'm very confused on why China would be coming to the East Coast ports.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm not.
The only way I could see it is if it's some kind of tariffing benefit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just
like
shipping direct.
if you're China, you just ride across the Pacific Ocean and you're in California.
Well, aren't they just? I'm sure California's just got their legs open over there for China to show up. I mean, that's California.
Well, yeah, didn't he clean up the streets?
Yeah.
Newsom cleaned up the streets when China came.
I'm guessing they probably take all their stuff there.
He's like, get out of here, you fucking bums. We got Chinese people coming. We got to fucking show them what's up.
My boss is showing up. You guys got to clean this fucking place up. I don't know. Well, a lot of places can't, like air traffic controllers, law enforcement can't go on strike. It's illegal for law enforcement to strike. So,
yeah. But like I said, during the hurricane, which that's already a clusterfuck anyway.
Yeah.
$750, which I know what they give the people in Hawaii, $700.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but then there's the whole theory that the reason that they're not helping those people is because North Carolina's cobalt rich, and they want to buy all that land from those people.
Which I've heard that conspiracy theory, but like the fact that the deep conspiracy theory was that, you know, the storm was man-made.
Well, okay. That deep conspiracy was that the storm was supposed to hit Florida, but they fucked up and it hit North Carolina. And now they're like, damn it, we missed.
We got to work on that targeting system.
Yeah,
like people have been talking about like seeding clouds.
We're going to have to use that fan a little more that we have, that large fan.
They talk about seeding clouds. Like that's been around forever, like for rain. But I'm like, I don't think you can control the jet streams. Maybe I'm stupid. But still, I guess even if the hurricane came through and they're slow to help them, dude, if those people, you still own the land, whether the house is there or not. Like, hey, we want to buy your land. Okay. Well, it's not worth anything. Obviously, it's worth something. So I want fucking how many? I want X number of dollars. Like those people.
If your house is gone and you have a mortgage on it, right? You owe money. Like you don't own the land if you're still making a payment on it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that I would just keep paying it until I figured out what was happening.
Right, but now you have to live somewhere, so you have to pay to live somewhere.
Yeah, but
Well-
if it's insured, you should get your money for it,
You
right?
should,
Like
but like a
my-
big
my-
thing like that takes a lot longer.
Yeah, it takes a long time for you. So you're just
Because-
living off of that 700.
Even if they don't have, even if there's 20 different insurance companies down there, they're all going to get hit by those different folks. And for catastrophic events like that, insurance companies have insurance for that. Like they go into captives and stuff where they pool their money together to try to protect against these catastrophic losses. Because like when Katrina came through and hit, if those insurance companies had to pay that out of like their own bucket and they didn't have reinsurance on it, they'd all be totally fucked. So you have all these different levels. Like they have to file a claim to get their money from their reinsurance policy, and then they have to go through and they have to distribute down to everyone else.
I know, like at least with my sister deal with the tornadoes, like that was pretty fast moving though. And they gave them right away, gave them money into their account to do rent, and then they give them money.
Yeah, but that's like relatively in scale. Like that was a really small event.
Well, but that one
I
was-
mean, that's cool.
But that's the one that rolled through
I've never been late on my insurance.
Nebraska or went through.
You know.
Yeah, but still, if you look at like the
Well,
impact of that compared to the impact of Helene, is that what it was?
Something like that,
Whatever,
yeah.
It's
whatever
a weird,
that came
it's a
down
weird
there.
name.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at the size and scale and impact of that versus that hurricane the tornado locally did a bunch of damage to the Omaha area, but in the big picture view of extrapolating out over all of Omaha and including Lincoln and stuff, like it wasn't that much.
That's cool that you got to wait for your money from your insurance company because, you know, if I lost my job and, you know, I wanted to keep my insurance on my house and I called my insurance company and I was like, hey, I'm waiting on a check from a guy. I'll be able to pay you guys. I'm sure they'd be really understanding about that and they'd let me, you know, continue my coverage.
But also,
if I didn't have the money to pay them.
or
then
they'll
they
just tell you
want
what
my
they're not going to pay for.
Yeah, I'm sure. I really, I would love to be patient at this time for them. You know, I'm sure they don't have the ton of money just sitting around and they can pay everybody out. You know, that's really nice. But I'm more of the mind of fuck you. Where's my money? I'm waiting for. Get my money. Go get my money.
Talk to this guy over here, Mr. Underwriter.
Go get my money. Get my. I don't care. Everybody else is walking around in new suits. I want my fucking money.
Yep.
Yeah, you got the underwriters over here. You know, they're deciding if babies live or die. You know, well, we're not going to cover that.
I wish we got to have that power, but we don't. We just price it out. Someone else tells us if they're going to live or die, and then we tell them how much it's going to cost.
When are they going to die? Like.
That's
It's like
the big question.
it's like a gamble, right? Like, all right, well, we'll go with, we're looking at 72 on this guy. Well, hopefully he makes it till the end so we can recoup our cost.
There was I was on a meeting last week, maybe, and we were talking about large losses, so like $1 million plus claims. And there's a policy that they were being somewhat discreet about because I'm sure if you did research, you could find it. But there's an individual who over a 3-year period had $40 million in medical claims.
How do you?
Are they like the Bionic Man?
Yeah.
I would imagine tons
faster,
of transfusions, living in the
stronger.
ICU for years. I don't know what, like they don't go into a lot of detail about it just because it's like such an extreme case. Like you could do probably a little bit of research and find out who that person is, and then you're in like HIPAA law violation.
Was that the guy with the iron lung that just died? How he lived like 40 years with an iron lung and then he just died?
I doubt it. I mean, that's probably not that expensive. It's just a giant metal box that's been around since 42. So
Yeah, and I think he was alive since then.
yeah. So they've got
Hey, he's
those.
living off the one lung. He's fine.
Yeah.
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 But there's some like cool like dose dependent drugs that are coming out that are like gene therapy things for kids who have genetic disorders that over the course of maybe the first 5 years of their life, they can take these drugs and correct some of them, like spinal degenerative or whatever it was. So essentially someone that's going to be born okay, and then by year 6 or 7, they're going to die because like their nervous system just doesn't develop and can't tell the rest of their body like, hey, you have the heart of a 1-year-old, but you have the body of a 5-year-old. Like you need to grow. And so you can have these gene therapies that'll do that. That gene therapy over the course of 5 years, probably close to $10 million. That's coming out now.
That sounds cool, but as long as they don't start using it for like making superhumans, And then I think there's like a moral.
Well, that's like a really good conversation, right? It's like, so if we take it that way, there's two routes you can go with some of that stuff. If you start identifying, so we've identified the gene, like we sequenced the human genome, I don't know, back in the late 90s, like we figured all that out. And now we're figuring out how to like, oh, this section here is fucked up and it twists to the left and it should twist to the right. Cool. Let's pull it out, twist it, put it back. All right, now you're good. So there's some really cool cases for that. But like if you start looking at embryos and you start looking at spermies and eggs and like finding the genetic code there and like you can put them together and be like, oh yeah, these will make whatever stuff, you know, oh, but the kid's going to have Down syndrome. All right, cool. Well, let's take that out. Well, they're also maybe going to be 5'10". Well, I'd like to have a 6 foot kid. So
that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's okay.
Make them 6 foot, right?
I don't think that. I think
right?
that takes away like pretty soon everybody's going to be 6'1" and 180.
Besides, maybe leave the Down syndrome. Those kids are super strong.
They are.
That's part of the superhuman.
So I'm sure it's like a kind of a tweener movie on Netflix called Uglies, I think. But it's essentially there's some like underlying stupid premise to it, but like a bigger like philosophical presence in it is the world essentially like people got into like this big war with each other.
I've seen that.
Lots of murder.
It's actually not that bad. It's
I
like
thought the
that
movie was good.
dystopian type thing. It kind of reminds you of like, hey, we built these. They basically wait till you're 16, then they turn you into this superhuman. Much.
So they essentially like you're born with whatever traits, but then you go through schooling and they kind of educate you on. Now there's this whole like they're educating you on whatever history they want, but like exclude that and just look at like the science part of it. You're born and then you're taken away from your parents because your parents are called pretties and you're an ugly because you haven't gone through this procedure yet. And so you're schooled, you're educated in a certain process, and then they kind of figure out like where your aptitudes lie and where your genetic potential is. And then when you become 16, they do this procedure that first of all makes you beautiful, but it also amplifies wherever your like maximum capabilities are. So if you're like have a real high potential for math, they're going to maximize that part, right? And they're going to try to bring up your reading, but like maybe reading isn't like your good part. So they maximize all that stuff, and then you go into society to maximize wherever your highest potential is. And so things are kind of predetermined to go that way. And so like I think it's a real cool
kind of like communism
philosophical underlying to it. Like
you're predetermined to be a potato farmer. That's what you
do.
But
if you already have like potential, if the potential there is for you to have, I don't know, some kind of, we'll just use math, right? So you have a real high potential for math. Depending on what environment you are, like you're probably already going to be higher than average. But if you can open that and expand on that, now you're going to maximize it, right? And so you have this potential to like make a better quality. I mean, we're already pushing people to be smarter and like, oh, go here and like study this and do this to maximize that potential. So if it's a genetic option, just do that.
I mean, the Soviets have been doing that forever.
I don't know. I'm kind of
right. It's this interesting like moral conversation, right? Because at one point, you can selectively pick out and be like, I would like to have an olive-skinned, green-eyed, 5'10" daughter, right? And you pick out all these things, and I want them this, that, and you're like, or you look at the other side and you're like, oh, this kid's going to be born with, God, what was the one that we just saw?
But they end up being
about it.
Sociopath
yesterday,
a superhuman serial.
There's a thing where babies are born with just the brainstem. Their brain doesn't develop, and so they have just a brainstem, and they're alive for like 2 or 3 days, but they're technically born alive. But then, as the rest of their functions come online, like the brainstem doesn't have enough capacity to keep everything going, so then they just die. But they know that, like you can test for that pretty early on in pregnancy because you see like the rest of the body's developing, and then the brain is getting to that crucial part where it needs to grow. And you could see that there. And so let's say you could look in there and you could see that and you go, let's give this child a brain. And you do some kind of gene therapy that tells the body, hey, take out that part that's broken, that's telling you not to grow a brain. Put this part in so that they do grow a brain. Cool. I think most people would be like, all right, that's pretty neat. But then you're like, okay, not only give them a brain, but while you're in there, make them a little bit smarter. Let's make them a little bit more creative, right? And so there's like this real gray area that you walk from being where like you're potentially saving lives, and you're going to have a human come into the world that otherwise wouldn't, to like, now you're giving them this genetic
Now you're
edge.
playing
You're
God,
selecting, you're
basically.
selecting this
Yeah.
genetic edge
Yeah.
to give them. And so it's cool. Like I don't know. I see there's good arguments both ways. I think the variety, the natural variety that comes out, I think is pretty neat. Like we've managed to do some pretty cool stuff without selective breeding. Well, without genetically predetermined breeding. I guess we've already done selective breeding. But
Yeah, selective breeding was done a long time ago.
yeah, I mean, this is how we mate, right? I mean, like we're generally picking people that are.
But that's how the Soviets used to their athletes. They made them play a whole bunch of stuff. Then once they figured out what they were good
Yeah.
at, they started directing them towards that. And then,
Yeah, but what if you could do that at the embryo level? So like you already know genetically, so you study all these Soviets. Like there was God, I can never remember the name of the book, but there was this book. I haven't read it. It was actually John Hansen told me about it. This Soviet book where they studied athletes, like top level athletes across gazillions of sports. And they took all these metrics across like 20 or 25 different skills, right? It's like back squat, clean, vertical jump, and all these things. And it was like, once you get to, you need to be able to, like, in order to be a world-class shot putter, you have to be able to squat 600 pounds, right? So like you have to be able to do this. So you have to meet these minimums in order to do that, right? But now if we know what those minimums are, and we look at those people and we see what their genetic code is, and now we're going to start looking at embryos, because you can see their genetic code, right, when they come together, and you're like, okay, cool. So we need a really good athlete, and we have this whole data bank of genetic code from athletes. This person best aligns with this over here. Cool. Let's tweak it a little bit, and we can make them better that. Or you
what
have,
about like the abnormalities that maybe you don't see, like how you have like, brittle tendon syndrome,
right?
those ones that you don't see, you know what I mean? So,
But like maybe you could see that at the genome level. Like if you're looking at someone's DNA, like if they were to look at my DNA, they could find the chromosome levels that are flip flopped, and they could be like, oh yeah, let's fix this Mr. Glass, flip him around so he's at least normal.
it's just so crazy because so much of that stuff also was like, especially in the sport, is just a mentality thing too. Mm-hmm. What's your mental aptitude?
Right, and so that definitely plays into it. But if you can give that physical, if you can take away the physical part of it, and then even from the mental part, like I'm sure there's a pretty good arguments for nature versus nurture on how we turn out, right? So if you can eliminate all of the nature parts, so you control the nature part, now it's only to the nurture part. Okay. It's kind of interesting. I mean, you could start doing that with pets, with cattle, they do. Well, I mean, from D&D, was that Michaela from D&D? I mean, they already keep, I'm sure it's more than a spreadsheet, but they essentially keep a spreadsheet
On which
all
bulls or what?
on all the
yeah.
genetics of all the animals that they have. And so they know, hey, if we put these two together, we don't know exactly what we're going to get, but we've got a pretty good likelihood of not having A and getting B, right? So like we're already doing that with animals and stuff. And so now as you start getting in, you can mess around with the actual genetic code. Fucking wild.
We really jumped around there.
We went from talking about the dock strike to talking about insurance to talking about superhumans.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's how it works, though.
it is.
I was at the med center yesterday for some EMS training, and it was cardiovascular and the neurological stroke folks there. And so it was like way too much brain power for the monkeys that were hanging out in the class with me. Like they had 4 legitimate brain surgeons giving a presentation to a bunch of EMTs.
Were they talking about
Paramedics.
stroke times and how
They were
how you
talking
can
about
like
stroke
save
times and
people
stuff.
like if you're in that window?
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
you can, if you administer TPA in the first like 6 hours, something happens, and so but like for every hour that goes by, you get % diminishing returns on all this stuff.
I unfortunately spent a lot of times in ERs, and in some of them they have like the teams up and who did the best job at like this person came in with a stroke, and they recognized it this fast, and they give the time,
Yeah.
and they administered this at this time, and then they like have like a chart in there
Yeah.
about how quickly they are like recognizing it. And then once they administer the right medication, they can turn you around that fast, as long as and with minimal to no damage to you whatsoever.
And there's a multitude of different kinds of strokes, right? You can have a hemorrhagic or an occlusion stroke. So the hemorrhagic is like where your brain is bleeding and you have to stop the bleed. And an occlusion is where you have a clot that's preventing blood from going somewhere else. I mean, either way, you get parts of the brain that are losing blood, right? So they're not getting oxygenated and they're dying off. But how you approach that and fix that, two wildly different procedures, two different types of surgeons, two different types of strokes teams. You need different facilities and stuff. So identifying, like, but from a field standpoint, you can't identify which one is which. Like if someone's having a hemorrhagic or an occlusion,
You know they're having a stroke.
right?
But
You can tell a stroke. You can
Yeah.
kind of tell like left side versus right side because there's different bits that go to it. And the funny thing is like, so like when people are having like hemispherical strokes or hemispherical symptoms, like, hey, this side of my face just doesn't move. If you're looking at them and you have them like move their eyes, the eyes will always point to the stroke side. So if like the stroke's on the right side and you have them move their eyes to the right, like they can do that. And then if you have them go to the left, generally like the left eye will just kind of like wiggle a little bit, but it won't go over there. And then the right eye might come to here, but it can't perceive anything over there. And it's not like the right eye doesn't work. It's like if my hand's here, the right eye gets to here, but it just doesn't understand what's going over there. And the crazy ones we got to see was like we had someone was having a stroke and we got in there, did this initial analysis, and you hold up their hand and you're like, hey, can you feel me touching you? And they're like, no. And you hold up this and you're like, whose arm is this? And they're like, I don't know, but that's my watch. Because like their brain is just severed. And so they don't realize that this is their arm. And you're like, hey, move your hands. And they might do this, but they don't know that they're controlling this arm. Like the brain has just completely severed the left side off. And they just don't recognize that it's doing anything over there. But it was these. So we had these neurosurgeons, and they're talking way like those people you talk to, and you go, "Oh man, you're smart." Like it's not because they're trying to make you stupid, like feel stupid. They're just so fucking smart. But they showed us some of the cool stuff. But one of the really cool things that like I really want to talk about was they had this like 3D TV, maybe about the size of that one, and you put on these 3D goggles, and you get this little stylus. And they have a 3D rendering of a brain, and it's in 3D that is right in front of you, but it's not just there. Like if I rotate my head around it like it was a physical object, I can now look at the right side of the brain, even though it's a 2-dimensional screen in front of me. And you use this little stylus, and you can like, oh, I want to take the left half of the brain, move it over here so I can look in the inside. And so that was like a diagram one for teaching. They showed us one of a scan that they did for a stroke patient that came in with this like weird hemorrhagic stroke, and they do a CT scan, and it's I can't remember what it was called, but it's like a fancy CT scan, and they turn it into this 3D version. So like before they go in to do the surgery, they have like a holographic 3D model of
your brain
that they're like, boop, and
Can you see the clot?
You can see the clot. You can see like everything that's in there because they put this contrast in there, and so they can like dissect the brain digitally and figure out like where it is, best avenues to go to. And like, all right, do we got to cut the skull and come in that way, or can we like come up through like a femoral artery and work our way in there to do that magic?
That's crazy.
It was fucking wild. It was.
I think
so
it's kind of cool that the teams compete with each other.
Yeah.
Who's got the best stroke time? I think that's kind of cool.
The outcome.
You just hope you don't get the fucking team that's in the bottom.
You get the D team, like, oh, fuck. I got the, oh, no, well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to move these fingers over here anymore, but
I
I'll be
flip you
alive.
off, but I had the fucking losing team, so I can't fucking move my finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it.
But yeah, there was.
Should have came on Saturday.
They talked about a gal that just recently, earlier this year, it happened to a gal. A 30-year-old woman went into an ER in western central Nebraska, presenting with a headache and dizziness, and they were like, okay. And so they kept her in the waiting room for a couple hours, brought her back into a different room, kept her there for a couple hours, and then she started getting like nauseous, and she was like starting to like fall to one side because she just couldn't keep her balance, and she was having a stroke the entire time. And so they ended up trying to like life flight her in. They flew her into the med center, treated her, and they're still like unsure like how much
damage she has,
how much
she was
function she's going to get back, because she was there for 4 hours plus, you know, whatever the flight time is to get out here. Then they had to do diagnostics and figure out what it is, because Crete, I think it was in Crete, has like, you know, have an ER and maybe a CT, but not like nothing like the med center. Even like Emmanuel has, they can do mechanical thrombotic procedures, and Bergen can do something like the Med Center is the only one that can do all of it, and the Med Center has their stroke teams are, I mean, everyone's kind of certified, but they have a special certification because all of their team members have to perform a certain number of actual procedures that meet a certain success threshold every year in order to keep their classification that they have.
That stuff is pretty neat. It's kind of cool I have, unfortunately, also in my previous job and my current job, ran into a lot of professionals in the medical industry, and some of them are very underwhelming when you talk to them, and then some of them are not. And it's some of the ones that, like the ones Matt are talking about, are the ones that are mostly not underwhelming, and a lot of them will leave you. Sometimes when you're in the ER and we're talking to people and you leave there and you're like, that person's a doctor? Wow. Yeah, I mean,
someone has to graduate last, right?
You have to remember, it's pass fail.
Yeah.
Medical school is pass fail.
Righty
yeah.
then. Yeah.
The old joke, like, what do you call the guy that graduated bottom of class?
Doctor.
Yeah. You're still a doctor.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. But it was cool. And like one of the other things, and then I'll stop talking about it, but one of the other parts that they talked about was cardiac arrest and like trying to get resuscitation and the benefits and all this stuff. And like over the last probably 3 to 4 years, there's been this kind of like real heavy shift in cardiac arrest and CPR procedure, where a lot of time it was like, hey, get compressions and get them to the hospital like as soon as you can. And Omaha is actually one of the leading EMS departments that's doing a ton of research and studies on it, and they're changing their ways. And what they're discovering is that time on chest is like number one. Like the how fast you can start compressions on someone who went into cardiac arrest, and then how consistently you can keep that going is like the major determinant in potential positive outcome. And it's not when they're measuring outcome, they're not like, oh, did you come back to life? Yes or no? They're like, did you come back to life? Yes or no? Cool. What is your neurological condition, right? Did you come back and you're who you were before, or do you have neurological deformity now where you can't function, right? You either, like you have some kind of degradation, either physical disability, speech impediment, thinking, something happens. And time on chest is huge. So how long you're doing, when compressions start and the quality of compressions, and then not administering a shock until you meet certain vital thresholds. Like you want to have some kind of mean arterial pressure that's high enough, right? Because it takes time to do CPR to get that pressure back up, and you don't want to.
That's talking about blood actually pumping through your body.
Yeah. So like when you start, so if you think about it, like if you die, if you die, right? So when your heart's pumping right now, you have. So everyone knows like 120 over 80, right? Like your systolic, your diastolic pressure.
Blood
so
pressure.
when your heart pumps, and the pressure when your heart is not pumping, and then there's a mean arterial pressure, which is kind of like the average of the system. There's a little more formula.
So basically, you're like pumping up think about it like you're like, basically you showed up and this person's now deflated, and you got to pump them up to a certain level to where an actual shock from an AED is going to do something. Otherwise, because you have no electricity in your heart and you have no rhythm whatsoever and you have no pressure buildup, you get shocked. It's going to do nothing but shock you, and you're not going to come back to life. But if you have time on chest for a little bit, witness cardiac arrest with someone who's trained in CPR is completely survivable as long as you get basically. So you got to get the blood pumping a little bit before you do the shock, basically.
So, and it takes roughly 2.5 to 3 minutes to get from zero pressure up to a shockable pressure, and I think 20 seconds to lose like 75% of that pressure that you built up. So like when you transition, so like Omaha on their Zols, like their monitors, their heart monitors, mobile heart monitors, it'll measure time on chest, and then it'll measure downtime. And so like that's one of the big things that they're measuring. And when they're looking at the tape is like how long were compressions going and how much downtime was there. And so they're looking for like 95% of the time spent treating the patient is with successful compressions going. So that's like moving them to a board, putting putting the Lucas on them, which is a mechanical CPR thing. Which you ever get a chance to see one of those, they're super cool.
It's super freaky to see it though.
Wildly violent. Like the
It
first
looks like
time I
it's
saw
beating
it,
the shit out of you.
it is crushing people. Like
Yeah.
I saw it put on this like 85-year-old lady who was maybe like 100 pounds, and I'm like, this is wild, but it does perfect compressions forever.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you think you're in shape, try doing compressions for a couple minutes
Like
with somebody.
legitimate real compressions.
Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
not, it's not easy.
No,
Yeah.
no, but yeah. So they're talking about all that and like the not using epi nearly as much. So delaying the use of epi. There's an inverse benefit to using epi. So like the more epi you use, your outcomes are negatively impacted to the inverse proportion, which was really weird. And so like the Omaha protocols, 90% of treatment that Omaha does on a cardiac arrest patient can be done by an EMT, by a BLS provider.
Without the epinephrine.
Without the epinephrine.
So that's what saved Nikki Sixx, by the way. Kickstart My Heart. That's where that song came from. The epinephrine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Real tribute song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cool. So like listening to them talk about that and to hear, like I went to a presentation where Omaha talked about it, and I listened to another presentation where it was a department from California that had like started this kind of, we'll call it a revolution in CPR, where they started monitoring and tracking all this stuff. But then when you hear the head of the advanced cardiac dysfunction department, I think is what it was at the med center, and they're saying all the same stuff that these guys are saying, and like, hey, by you doing this, it gives us the best chance to either A, bring them back when they get here, or keep them alive when they get here and monitor them to have the most positive outcome, i.e. you're alive and you have no neurogenic defect afterwards. It was really cool.
So if you don't know how to do CPR, you should take a class.
100%. Yeah. Because the important thing is like just compressions. You don't need to breathe in their mouth.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
You don't have to
I mean,
do
if
that.
it's somebody that I love, I'll do that. But
Yeah.
it's not, if it's somebody.
But generally, if you're
Yeah.
doing good enough compressions, you're going to get 80% air exchange. So I mean, you've got enough in there that you can pump stuff around. But yeah, that was really cool. Like there was only a little bit of it. I think that's applicable to like EMS provider world, but like the actual background information, like listen to those guys talk and like see what they do on the back end was fucking out of this world. Super cool.
There's a lot of smart people out there.
Yeah.
Also a lot of dumb
Fucking
people.
crazy smart.
There's a lot more dumb people
These
than
guys
there are
crazy
smart people.
Like when you're the head of the neuro department was talking, and I bet he could explain what he does to, someone who's second best neurosurgeon in the world. Like they could have a great conversation, and I bet he could also effectively explain it to a first grader. Like he's just that smart and understands it that well. It was wild.
Being smart and not being able to apply it, and being smart and being able to apply it are two very different things.
Yeah.
We also went on another trip down a different road there.
Which one?
The one that we just went on.
Oh, that one.
Which one are we talking?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were kind of all over the place. I mean,
Brett's a little bit out of it today, guys, because he worked on the fingers all day yesterday. And by the fingers, I mean not,
we got our strongman.
Fingers.
Yeah,
We're working on our strongman, the fingers for strongman.
So
That
he's
building the big platform.
So he's sunburnt and
They're almost
tired.
done. They're like 99% done. They were fucking
Do
heavy.
you figure out what they weigh? Any idea
No,
what
but
they
we
weigh?
fucking turned the one and it was fucking terrible.
Did you get the biggest one?
We turned all of them because he had to weld the other side.
So what Brett's saying is he got finger blasted yesterday.
It was bad, yeah.
yeah, it was bad. It
By all the fingers.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, what led into the start of this conversation is we talked about how shitty FEMA is to everybody. That's what started this.
Yes.
And that's how you got to learn CPR.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have those numbers we were talking about earlier.
Oh, about the one. Yeah.
And here's what I say. I can't confirm that any of these numbers are true. But we do know that the fucking people in Hawaii got $700 and the people in the Carolinas and Georgia and Florida got $750 from FEMA. And now they're broke, apparently. But this year we gave $24.4 billion to Ukraine, 11.3 billion to Israel, and I'm not going to go through this entire list because there's like 8 other countries.
Just name some shitty countries that we gave a lot to.
We gave Congo 987 million.
Yeah.
We gave $1 billion to Yemen, 1.1 billion
And
to
those people in those countries
Afghanistan.
really love Americans.
And then on average, per illegal immigrant that's come to the U.S., they've gotten $9,000. What I want to know is, and if people want to put this stat out there for me, I'm not saying these numbers are right. Tell me how much any of these countries have given the U.S. I doubt Ukraine has given us anything. And I don't care. You're going to say, well, we didn't give them actual money. We gave them military aid and we gave them fucking tanks. And that's still taxpayer money. If they wanted to sell that tank to a private citizen, they would get money for it. It's still money. Tell me anything that any of these fucking countries have done for the U.S. Do you think they're sending money over for hurricane relief? Anybody? Nope. I fucking doubt it.
Can we get at least $1 billion of that back?
Maybe. You know what? Actually, I'm surprised.
At least.
I wouldn't be surprised if Israel's actually given money before. They're like a pretty legitimate ally most of the time. I don't know though.
I cannot. I would find it very hard to believe that anybody's ever recently in a decent amount of money given the United States any money.
And then they can say, "Well, we're better off than them." That's not true. Obviously, we're not. We can't even give fucking people who got there.
Go downtown to Philadelphia and walk around a little bit and tell me how well off everybody is.
Go to North Carolina right now. Go to Asheville and tell me how great those people are doing.
I'm talking about a city that's not been destroyed by it. I'm just talking about a regular city.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just go to a large city and to a shittier part of the city and look around and tell me how well off everybody.
Go out to fucking LA. Was that Skid Row or whatever?
Yeah.
Fucking the bum communities. That's all I'm saying. That's a bunch of shit.
Well, it depends. Is Xi or whatever his name is in town?
Oh, well, if China's coming to California, he's going to clean that shit up.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on when you go.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm not going to.
If you want to go to California, just visit when he's there. That way.
And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to debate whether these numbers are true or false. We know we've given a ton of fucking money to Israel and Ukraine. Maybe these numbers aren't exactly right. And I don't care if it's, I don't care if it's actual dollars or aid. It doesn't fucking matter. It's still.
What does aid equate to, though? What does that mean?
Why didn't we sell these tanks to Ukraine and make money off of them to come back to the U.S. to help people here?
I don't know.
Matt?
I don't know.
We just had this talk like a week ago about.
That's a totally different topic.
It is, but it's still
right. But
it's still helping because we talked about helping people here.
Yeah, and I said my dilemma is like helping people here versus helping people elsewhere. Where here, looking at the individual level, like excluding your life being wiped out by a hurricane, the opportunity for advancement and to have a quality life is substantially higher here than in half the world, right? Your opportunity for
I'll agree with you on that, but do you think that that's getting less and less as we move forward? I think the ability to do something like that is dropping as the country is evolving.
You could cut the opportunity in half, and you're still going to be 10 times higher than like Togo, where.
But I think it should still be as to what it always was. It should still be just as easy for somebody to do that, to have the American dream as it was 50 years ago. Yeah, and I think with all the money we're sending out of the country, it's making it harder for actual Americans to have the American dream.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about government funding. What I was specifically talking to was like if you're looking to make a donation, like you want to help. So the thing I was looking up, I think it's Give Directly is the nonprofit that I was referencing, where like what they end up doing is they give money directly to people. So like pick one of the people that Aaron was interacting with in Togo, right? They can, if you donate through this charity, they essentially give that money to that person, and then they get to decide how best it helps them in their life, right? And so, but the piece that I was debating, or like more like internally debating, is if I have $1,000 that I want to donate to give to someone and do that, like there's lots of stuff you can do here. There's lots of people that need help here, right? And you can do stuff here. There's also a shit ton of opportunity here to have a halfway decent life, right? Even some of the lowest opportunity areas in the United States are significantly better, magnitudes better than arguably at least a quarter of the world, if not half the world. So when
But a lot of that's government derived.
what is
There's a lot of government aid in a lot of those shitty areas.
from what government?
You're talking about here.
Yeah, here.
You're not talking about other countries.
No, I'm talking about here, but it's where you said as far as personal donations.
I don't
I'm
think he's talking about
funding.
government aid. You're talking about like actually working hard and like building something
Yeah,
for
I'm saying like
yourself.
if you're
and,
born whatever station you're born into here in the U.S., you have a magnitudes higher opportunity to have a decent life.
so what you're saying, it's completely on you. Like if it's on you if you want to be
It
a
is more
successful
on
person.
I
then-
mean, it's on all of us to try to
Yeah.
try to better ourselves. What I'm saying is that the opportunity to better yourself is substantially higher here than it is in half the world. Right? Again, I'm not saying like we should donate all of our money outside the country. That's the dilemma that I was like debating with myself. Is like
I think that's great. I think you're right about that, but I also think I don't understand how that equates to giving money to other countries, because that just means that they're not going to use it the way that we would use it anyway. So then they're not going to. The people that
but
are
the way that we want to use it, is that the best outcome for them?
for who? The other countries?
Yeah, I'm not talking, not ignoring the government, ignoring the list that Brett had. I'm saying like you have $1,000 that you want to donate to help something. I have $1,000. Like
That's the difference. I'm not donating to shit over another country.
And that's totally fine. Like I get it. If all
I'll
the money
donate
wants to
to
go
actually
here,
help someone here that lives
Yeah.
here, but I don't give a shit about what's going on in Yemen,
right? And that's
or in Congo.
There's that.
You know what I mean?
There's the part is like if you're looking to help out, but the argument then it would be like if you're donating into someone here, doesn't that person have more opportunity to like better themselves? Like, shouldn't they be the ones working to get better?
I think that's the point of it. Then that's if the money stays here, then we're going to have a better class of society, a better group of people to help those people out that aren't like, hey, here's some funding to help you out to get you back on your feet so you're not living down on Skid Row, or we need to have some more mental health institutes to put people in. But sending it over to Yemen so they can fund some fucking civil war and it just gets funneled back to the government.
Or you send it over to the mother of three whose husband died because he got some cut and had no way to clean it.
Are you talking in another country?
Another country, yeah. So you pick we'll use Togo just because that's where Aaron was, and so I'm only mildly familiar with the name. Right, and so like you have this person here who has like their opportunity for advancement and like improving their life is capped. Like if 10 is Warren Buffett level, right? They're probably capped at like 2.
I think that's what's nice about our country is that you can do what you want with your money, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't get a say in what you do with your tax money. And
Right.
are you okay with your tax money?
No, but those are
exactly.
But those are these are two totally different topics.
But remember we talked about this, and I said you don't know if you would send $1,000 to that mom in Togo that she would frivolously use it, because there could be a mom here with 2 kids that's on welfare, but instead of doing anything with her kids, which is basically a donation, and she fucking goes and just buys a bunch of fucking booze.
Right. But
Yeah, I mean,
you have to separate. These are 2 totally different topics. One of them is what happens to my tax.
Well, I'm just saying in general, when you give somebody
That's what I'm
free
talking
money,
about.
when
I
you
don't
give
want
somebody
my
free
fucking
money,
tax
whether
money
it's
going
from the
anywhere.
government or you donate it to somebody else and they get free money, the appreciation of what it took to earn the money is not there.
100% argue against that when you look at donating money to other places. Like if you give that money to those people in Togo, first of all, like they don't have frivolous shit to buy. Like they can't just go out and buy shit because there's not that much to buy. So when you donate to one of those areas, like, and you can like the Give Directly website has a ton of like good research out there where they cite all their sources and they go through it. So you donate money, that person is going to take that money and maybe they put a new roof on their house, or they start some kind of small business in that area. Right. Whereas here you have much more of a handout state.
So we're talking about 2 different things technically. You're talking about donating your personal money.
I'm thinking like,
I think we're mainly talking about where our tax dollars go.
Right,
And
yeah,
I don't think it's okay that our tax dollars go outside this country.
Agreed. Like,
Yeah. So
our tax dollars should be like helping us.
completely 2 different things.
Yes,
so we're on the
But no,
same
what
page.
I
with
was
the
saying
tax
is, though,
dollars,
is-
but what Matt's saying is that everybody has the right to like.
No,
if you want to give some
I don't
money
disagree
to
with that.
somebody in Togo, I mean that's great.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that when you give people money for doing nothing, 9 times out of 10, they're going to fucking not do anything with it.
I agree with you. On
Stateside,
that.
yes.
I think anywhere.
I don't know. I can't really
You
comment.
can't
on
tell
that
me
because
everybody's
I
poor in
haven't-
Africa.
I haven't been.
So somebody is making money in Africa.
I haven't been
Somehow
anywhere
there's being
outside.
money made in
Like,
Africa.
I don't know. I couldn't say.
Somebody, sure.
Okay. Well, where did they come from?
Right. Well, there's such limited opportunity to grow in those areas, right? Like you can't. They don't have the buying power. And again, I'm not trying to persuade people to go there. This is like my own internal monologue that I'm just externalizing as I think through this and stuff. Because my default is like money should stay here. Like tax money, yes. My money, yes. Like we should be helping people here. If you look at giving someone here, pick some person that seems in need and you give them $1,000 here, the ROI of that $1,000 on that person's life is probably okay. Like, is it life-changing money? No. But is it cool? Yeah. You give that $1,000 to someone like one of the families that they helped in the clinic over in Togo, someone from Slumdog Millionaire area, right? Like that $1,000 is life-changing money that they can now do something with.
I think that's more of like a personal attachment to like a family that lives in a shitty country that you're giving money to, and they're going to use it for a different, like to better their life. Yeah. But I think what Brett's talking about, giving money to people in the States here, is that if you gave some people that live in a shitty area and don't have any nice things, and you gave them $1,000, what do you think they're going to buy with it? My guess is they're probably going to buy a PS5 and some video games, and then, but that's the issue with giving. The culture of that needs to change. Like people need to realize what's important.
We'll go the other way.
Because
take someone who inherits
is-
a ton of money and has no appreciation for what it took to earn the money. Generational wealth is depleting in this country because there's no appreciation for what it took to earn that money.
And I think people also get a lot of assistance with housing and food. So when they get money given to them from a charity or something like that, well, I don't need any food because I get food. So I'm going to buy some
like the thing in
stuff,
Togo, like
some stuff.
in
I'm just
Togo,
gonna buy
like
some stuff.
instead of donating, be like, hey, you guys farm things. How about I buy some whatever?
As long as they're the ones that are telling us what they need. Because there's a multitude of instances and research out there that shows when foreign charities come in and they're the ones who determine what the community needs, it shits the bed.
No, I'm not talking about that. Like, just say one of the families Erin met while she was there. Hey, you guys farm fucking whatever? Okay, I'm going to buy whatever from you. I want you to send me fucking 20 loaves of bread and I'm going to give you $100.
Okay.
But then there's an appreciation because they did something to earn the money.
Right. Or they're looking to start a bakery and you're like, cool. All right. And you give them this money and then they're able to start that. Right. Or they're able to pay for their daughter's cleft lip surgery.
That's like going to the food truck and you're like, hey, how many burritos do you guys sell in a day? We probably sell 30. And then you're like, oh, well, here's $1,000. How many burritos would that buy me? Well, hey, here, take this $1,000 for your one burrito. That's kind of a cool thing. You know what I mean? Because they're trying to make a living. You're giving them money for that. That's kind of right around the same type of thing you're talking about. They're earning the money and they're putting it back into something. So it does they probably appreciate it more because they're actually earning the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right. If like the money that generally gets distributed here stateside is a recurrence, right? So when people get free money, they get free money today, they get free money next month, and they get free money the month after. If all of that was gone and it's like, you have no idea if you're going to get money this month or next month or never, right? So you're working, you're trying to do something, you're trying to improve your life, and then you get $1,000. Like that person is going to view that money differently than if it's on a recurring basis. Like, because I thought a lot about your question about the reservations and the Indians and kind of how that and that was. I admittedly did no research. This was only like in my brain dialogue, but like that's money that's a recurring payment to them, right? So if you get a recurring handout, then the appreciation for that goes away dramatically because it's just there. It's no longer a surprise. It's no longer like, holy shit, I finally have something that I can do this with. It's like, I'm going to get this money every month anyway. I'm just going to fucking do whatever the hell I want with it. And then if someone comes and gives me $1,000, I'm going to go buy a fucking PS5 and some fucking, what are Kanye's shoes?
Yeezys.
Yeah. Go get me a pair of them, right?
I don't think those are popular anymore after Kanye had his big fall. I don't know, though. I don't know what the popular shoes are.
But if you're able to go into a community where people are working and they are trying to get better and they are trying to advance themselves, but there's just virtually no opportunity and no way to like make that much money, and then you can give them that boost.
You could move them here.
They
could come live with you.
They could come live with me.
I think the biggest thing is what we talked about is that we're all in agreement that our tax money should be going to countries that why are we giving money to countries that don't like us and don't really like? I just don't understand. I don't understand why we're giving money to Yemen. And it just blows my mind. Why?
Right, like that's the part I'd like to. Is like I want to hear someone give like an explanation for why.
We give $1 billion to fucking Yemen.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, Nate, and I hope people comment. Or a couple of our dozens of listeners. Tell me how many of these people. I don't care about those numbers. I don't care if we've given half as much.
There has to be some benefit.
How much have those countries given us? Like the Ukraine thing, it was like, oh well, it's a war that we don't have to fight. Then what do we have to do anything with it?
Well, then you look at the money that's been given to people, the hurricane survivors and then like the people in Maui, all that stuff. It doesn't even come close to the amount of money that have been given.
Just look at on average the 9,000, which whatever it is. I don't care if it's 1,000 per migrant, and people can say whatever they want to. Well, they're just trying to have a better life. It's still illegal. They're still illegal because they cross the border without permission. That's still illegal. That's the first word of it. It's illegal. But even if you give them all $1,000, that's more than you're giving the fucking people. Well, they're staying in like luxury hotels in New York.
If there's 18 million illegal migrants here and they all take $1,000,
that's a lot of money.
That's a whole lot of money. It's a lot. Even if it's only $1,000, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. So, yeah. And people got all bent out of shape when Trump fucking pulled money from all these different places, and he's like, they aren't fucking paying the same amount. Why should we?
I'd really be curious to know, like, the justification for giving the money. Like, it's got to be. It's
what's gonna be some bullshit fucking answer like, oh,
right,
well, like the Ukraine thing
is like, all right,
well, it keeps us from having to fight. Why do we have to fight?
Yeah.
Right, but like, what's the side effect of that war?
Well, fuck, what's going on?
I don't know if you know, but we got oceans between us.
I got my own fucking problems.
What's the world impact of that war?
It was all
a huge impact on Europe.
I'm not picking a side either way on this thing, but it was all Putin's before. You know what I mean? It was the fucking USSR before. People are like, he wants to take it. I go, I mean, it was his before.
So it's. I mean, that's fine. But then, like, where does that you keep extrapolating?
So like why are the world's problems the United States problems?
That's a world economy, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it, right? There's a world economy, and we're the biggest consumer in the world. So it's not like surface level, like
it all boils down to money. Obviously, that's what it all boils down to.
Money.
It just all boils down to money and how we can funnel money in and out of the country to make the elites more money, and how everyone can have power over whoever they want to have power over. That's all it boils down to. And it's whatever answer it is as to why we're helping Ukraine or what. It's all bullshit, and we shouldn't be helping Ukraine. I mean, why do we got to get involved? And NATO can deal with it. We'll be over here chilling, hanging out, helping people in North Carolina.
Yeah,
they're a non-NATO state, right?
Well, yeah, they are. But if it's going to affect Europe,
well, wasn't that part of the thing? Is
their problem? It's on their side of the fucking ocean. They can worry about it. It's right. When some shit happens over here, we'll take care of it.
There was something along the lines of, wasn't Ukraine going to join NATO, and that was part of Putin's big thing? He didn't want them to join NATO.
Well, like NATO was moving over, and
all the allies
will have
to protect.
I can't remember
Ukraine.
what the NATO representative from the States essentially said, like, hey, we're going to stop here, and then NATO's not going to move one more inch or something and now it's expanded way more than it ever was originally going to be.
Yeah, because
and so that makes Putin nervous to have NATO encroaching in on that.
I mean,
stuff, but
I understand that. I mean, think about it. If all of a sudden, Russians
strategically, Ukraine isn't Ukraine one of the big like ports shipping in and out of that area? They're like one of the main wheat producers for the region and for Europe, and they have a couple other.
He's just trying to protect his country, and he's just trying to, I get it. I mean, I don't understand. I don't. I don't know what the big deal is. I think that's the other problem that living in the world that we live in now is no one really knows what the fuck's going on. You know what I mean? Like what's really going on?
Topics are tried to boil down to like a black and white and like one or two solution, right? And there's no way things are that simple. Like there's no way with the world economy and how interwoven everything is.
I could be wrong, but I feel like I'm a semi-intelligent person, and I look at all that information. I look at all of it, and I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like I don't understand. Like it's hard for me to even grasp what the big picture is with what's going on over there, and for someone to try to explain it to you. I think the American public is pretty much over the whole war in Ukraine. There's some people that are, still all about it, but I think for the most part,
a lot of Americans are tired of the bullshit in general.
Everybody's over it. And because once again, no one really knows what's going on, and there's nobody on TV going, hey, this is why we're doing this, because it's a threat to this, this, and this. And that would be helpful. But nobody's saying that. All they're saying is, hey, we got to get this bill passed so we can send a couple $1 billion over.
So I'm going to tell you, whatever that number I was said, we could have fucking sent our own military over in half the time and just fucking taking care of this whole thing and spent way less.
Drones, man.
Yeah.
Just
have you
drones.
seen the videos of like drones flying around dropping hand grenades on people?
They're it's scary to think about. Like you're just chilling on the tank and all of a sudden, oh shit.
There's the one video that's this, I don't know if he's a Russian or Ukraine soldier, like up against a busted tank. And you see the drone comes over there and the guy just looks up and he's like, okay. Fucking grenade drops and he just grabs it and throws it. And it just blows up in the trees. And he just looks back up in the drone and just rolls over.
Fuck that.
Fucking gigantic nuts.
They were talking about how they were taking down helicopters with those drones. They were,
You can just fly them into the rotors.
Yeah, the multi-million dollar, billion-dollar pieces of machinery taken out by $1,000 drone.
Dude, all you need is a pager. Good thing we don't have pagers here anymore.
God, no shit to get your nuts.
That was wild.
Fucking get your nuts blown off.
Yeah.
I know. Well, the pagers that they used were like the last generation that we used at the department were the same pagers. And we were like, we don't have those anymore, right? Like, where'd we get those from?
Yeah, that's crazy. You just got to intercept a shipment of pagers and put an explosive device in them. And
fucking wild.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all a mess and a clusterfuck is really what it comes down to.
Once again, I just want somebody to tell me what's really going on.
Yeah.
And good luck trying to find trying to do your own research on it to try to get to the bottom of it, because that's, it's impossible to try to.
No, it's all skewed to tell a narrative. There's very little.
It depends on
raw information
which
out there.
site you go to or where you try to find your information. You're like,
yeah,
I don't believe any of this shit. I don't know.
It's all a clusterfuck. We went over a lot of things.
We did go over a lot of things. Get some CPR training.
Yeah, get some.
I would recommend that.
Yeah.
Yeah, save lives.
Tax money stays in the United States.
Yeah. Fuck them other countries.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, subscribe, share.
Register to vote.
Follow.
Get your mail order ballot like me. Be an American.
Get out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Go vote on election day.
Yeah, and make sure you fucking watch him put that in the thing too, so there's no dude in the back changing.
You mean the mailbox?
Yeah.
Just put my flag up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking what a bum. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.